Hi, everyone. Welcome to this brand new episode of Table 21. Thank you for joining us. I'm very excited again to come and be here today. I always say I'm excited because, I picked the guest. So, you know what? I tend to talk to people that I enjoy talking to. And today I'm bringing somebody that's very special to me and very special to the Piecemeal Project, Josh Fiddler. Josh is an industry, like me, an industry veteran, guy from the West Coast. Spent a lot of time in Montreal and South Africa. Like, I just found out trying to put a bio together for this that he basically crossed the Atlantic. We never spoke about that, even though I've known him for a year and a half. So, and I see him giggling because you don't see him, but you know what? I'm just going to bring him in and we'll get the real story from him. Good morning, Josh.
Good morning, Christopher.
How are you, man?
Can't complain.
Can't complain. I usually sometimes do a little bit of a deeper intro, but since I saw you there and I'm like, oh, we got all kinds of stuff to talk about that I don't know. But for the little story, Josh has been collaborating and working with us at Piecemeal for a little over a year, like almost a year and a half now. Yeah. And we'll talk about his work with us today. But it's been a long time. I did one in French with Felix, which is our customer success manager. My partner, Oz, I've been wanting to get on forever, but he's busy. But we'll get him on someday and we'll get to pick his brain. But Josh came to us last week and said, I'm writing an article about, how I perceive Piecemeal in our industry and how, my relationship with it and then it turned down into a longer essay. And I got to read one of the first drafts of it. And I was like, man, let's do a Table 21 because I want to chat with you. So I'm very, very happy to have you with me today. Thanks for coming on. Happy to be here. First thing I always like to know is, we know each other for a year, but we spend more time working and talking about restaurants and tech and different things than we do get a chance to talk about ourselves or our background, even though we get to know a little bit of each other. But let's talk baby Josh. Let's go back, way back in the time machine. And I'm curious, I know you're from the West Coast. Yeah. But kind of, tell us a little bit about how you started, where you've been, and how you got to the restaurant industry. And I'm guessing, like me, it's probably been, quite a while. So I'm kind of curious to hear the story here.
Yeah. As you said, West Coast boy. I grew up in the beautiful city of Vancouver, which was, it's hard to beat for a kid. Yeah. What was the thing that really hooked me into cooking when I was a kid was I watched a lot of TV. And this was in the heyday of like TLC, when it was a real TV show, TV network that actually you did learn something from. There were cooking shows. There were, when I was probably 11, I learned how to, reupholster a chair. But it was shows on the Learning Channel, on CBC, that really sort of caught my attention. And shows like Walk with Yan.
My God, I was going to tell you, what's the first cooking show that you remember? Yeah. And with my dad, when I was 5-6 years old in Saint Agathe in the Laurentians here in Quebec, I watched Walk with Yan. Do you remember his one-liner?
Yeah.
It smells like fish, but tastes like chicken.
And there was Yan Can Cook,
okay,
which I think was, I can't remember. I may be, they both apparently have the same name in it. So yeah. He would feed the scraps to his brother, which was like a little hole in the table.
Was it the same chef? I'm guessing so, right?
Possibly. I can't remember. It was
because I've never heard of Yan Can Cook. I remember Walk with Yan, but I don't remember.
It might have been. Like I said, this is going back 30 odd years now. And, but seeing that stuff on TV and being like, I'm hungry now, and going into the kitchen and just doing it. I probably started when I was about 8 or 9, making breakfast. My grandmother had one of those amazing. I lived with my grandmother. She in this amazing old house, and she had one of those flip over omelet pans. The two clamshell things. She had 2 of them. Who has 2 of them? My grandmother.
You could rock bread.
I was making omelets all the time. And then baking. There was one time when I made chocolate chip cookies, but forgot to put the flour in. That was fun.
What happens? Remember?
Predictable puddle of butter and sugar in the oven. I figured it out before it.
A nice
really,
soup.
really got bad. I managed to catch it before it was a complete disaster.
Yeah, I think my first hit recipe was God, I was going to say it in French, so I'm trying to remember, but French toast. That was my first hit. Like once I nailed French toast, I was having a lot of French toast.
Yeah,
around that 7-8 years old. Yeah, around 7-8. Yeah,
yeah. Once you can figure that thing out, it's the same thing with my kids. They do scrambled eggs and they make egg in the hole, and the cooking bug hasn't really bit them, but they can do it.
They can do it.
Like me. But whatever. Yeah.
I've always been I don't know. Have you ever been that way? When I go into a recipe, and I do the same thing with music, I like to do deep dives. So like when I decided to start making try risotto, like in, I don't know, 2010, 2009, at some point my girlfriend said, "You've nailed it. Move on." Like I cannot have risotto once a week. It's been a year. You've done every variation in the world, with like braised cheeks, and then with lobster, and then she's like, "You got it. Like move on. You've gotten this." And so sometimes I get some of that of like, okay, you've like done this recipe 22 times in the last few months. Like you're good. You can, like, I got into barbecue in the last year. She's like, "I like the smoke, but like let's tone it down a little bit."
Yeah, I don't have that problem.
No, you actually probably just nail the right recipe quicker, right?
Yeah, and my family is just like, everything is great. We never need to go to a restaurant again. But yeah, I feel like on that. Like so I had the opposite experience this last Christmas, or the Christmas before. I can't remember. Everything is just sort of running together now.
Right now, yeah.
I decided that I was going to perfect, what I thought would be the ideal chocolate chip cookie, and for like 8 weeks, all I did was make chocolate chip cookies. And
you did, because you did give me a pack, and my girlfriend was like, "Don't ever make cookies again. Just make sure that Josh can make us cookies," because that was by far the best goddamn chocolate cookie I've ever had in my life.
Yeah,
for sure.
We call them at home. We call them the ideal chocolate chip cookie.
Yeah.
They're crispy on the outside, soft and squishy in the middle, and just the right amount.
We can see there was some perfection, some R&D done there for sure.
I spent time. There was a lot of cookie eating. It's called cookie life.
Somebody's got to do it, right?
Yeah. So just continuing the story from there, I just kept it up, and it never really became like an idea to become a cook per se. But when I was just entering high school, I had to move. My family had to relocate from Vancouver to Vancouver Island. And shout out to UKBC and Tofino. Once there, I kind of went deep. All I did was like make pizza and bread and all the good things that a growing boy needs in his life. And short time later, I met some people who would sort of change things for me. If anybody's familiar with the West Coast, familiar with Vancouver Island, Tofino in particular, there's a hotel there now called the Wickaninnish Inn. And the Wickaninnish Inn is actually the second Wickaninnish Inn, and it's strangely not even on Wickaninnish Beach proper. My friend and neighbor was the original owner of the Wickaninnish Inn, which I think in 1972, the federal government appropriated the land for what is now the beautiful Pacific Rim National Park and turned John's Hotel into a museum and an interpretive center. Okay. But John and Melanie were hoteliers, so like I started absorbing everything about being in the business. Like they ran their house essentially like a little hotel. In fact, we stayed, a lot of our, like my friends, like their kids, we were really, really good friends. We would all like crash at the house all weekend. Like we would just stay there, and from there I learned cooking in a fire pit, whole salmons and just the little things that really made me start to love the idea of being in a place where it's not just about nourishing or feeding that hunger, but you're starting to feed people with the love that you put into it, right? And that really, 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 really resonated with me. And I actually got into a fight with my father about whether or not I was going to go to university or cooking school. And my father won. So after a university degree here in Montreal, during this degree, I decided that I was going to become a short order cook. And fortunately, in my hometown over the summers, at the place where I had been washing dishes, they loved me and they took me in and gave me the opportunity. And
just for context, what did you study?
Oh, yeah. I went through 14 departments at McGill and studied everything from history and philosophy of science to astrophysics to religious studies. I just couldn't really.
And then you came out of that and said, I'm going to go be a short order cook.
So, yeah, I mean, obviously, because.
And was that when you said you went back home, you back to Vancouver Island, right?
Yeah, every summer I'd go home and I would cook all summer long.
For those of you watching that don't necessarily know, Vancouver Island is like, as far as I've been told, I've never been. I've been to Vancouver, but not Vancouver Island. Tofino is a great surfing spot. It's a very like you're in nature. It's a very very relaxed and great vibe, right?
Yes, I've been hashtag humble brag. I've been a few places and. I keep that place at the top of the list. It's a very special place. There are, I'd say New Zealand's a close second. South Africa is just in a different ballpark altogether. But going back there, growing up there was a treat. It was forest and ocean and fresh seafood. My father was a fisherman, so I also had access to like the freshest fish all the time. I grew up with a stand-up freezer to the door with packages of halibut and prawns and you name it was in there. Octopus, squid. I remember the first time I had fresh calamari. My father bringing a squid home, cleaning it, scoring it, slicing it, and then in a smoking cast iron pan. And like, what do you like? How can you say no?
Yeah.
How can it not, right? It's so. All of those things, the combination of what my father did, my experience with my friend John and Melanie and their home and their lives, and just resonating with my idea of giving to the people that I love and then extending that to the larger community.
I bet that for a lot of people, and I remember when I started cooking better recipes than French toast, like my family, my mom, or people around me, their reaction to, oh my God, this is really good, and their enjoyment and the love of it, it's got to be like probably the starting point for most cooks and chefs.
It's really rewarding. It's a great source of validation.
So you study all of these crazy things, you go back home to be a short order cook, and you start cooking back on Vancouver Island.
And so summers were Vancouver Island, a little cafe called Blueberries. Super grateful to the Larson family for putting me into that spot and never really looking back. The thing about the restaurant business that I think that is really kind of hard to see is just how much, when you're in it and you find good places, it becomes family. The people that you're with, day in to day out, it's, we joke that we're kind of like pirates or mercenaries and stuff, but there's that sort of camaraderie that comes with being in difficult situations and rising above problems and really delivering promises to people that when it works, and everybody, when they work together, it's just like magic. There's
something about going to, let's say, war, but not war because of the guests, but war because of all the intangibles that happen when you go through a rush. Is that there could be problems with the kitchen. It could be problems with service. It could be mistimed stuff. There could be too many people coming at the same time. Like there's so many things. People not coming earlier for their reservation or later. And when you're from outside from the industry, it's hard to understand. But when you go, and I'm sure you probably have similar memories, but of people that I work with that I usually get along with most people. But obviously there's people that rub you the wrong way. But I can name a long list of people that didn't really like their face. But after you go through a couple of hard rushes and hard shifts together, you're like, there's a respect that gets established, and it's like we tolerate each other and we work well together because we're trying to provide that amazing experience, and we need to do it together or we won't do it, right? It's not one person in a restaurant, it's everybody. But I when you say we become a family, you know, some black sheeps in certain families. So sometimes there's people they're like, I mean, I wouldn't invite you to my wedding, but you know, I'll work with you and I'll go to war with you a couple of nights a week, right? So there's definitely that respect that gets established.
And it's important because things move so quickly. It's like we're really hung up on, as cooks and as servers and as industry people, we're really hung up on making sure that on the other side of things, if anything does go on, the other side, like the customers don't see it. If they notice something, then we've not done our jobs, right? And so if you can find those people who, you might not get along on a political or a personal level, but when it comes down to it, you guys can do the dance, you can make it happen. And in those situations, that's all that matters.
If you can carry your weight, I can carry my weight. We'll get through this, right?
Get above your personal differences or your egos. It's kind of a great microcosm for like when you can do that. It's amazing. Obviously, it doesn't happen all the time. Sometimes it just. But that sense of like what I was saying about the customer side not seeing problems. It's like I can remember one instance where on the line, a light bulb inside of one of those old cages explodes, and because they can't have a glass cage because they don't want the glass cage to explode, it just falls through all of the wiring and into whatever's in front of you. At the time, it happened to be a deep fryer, and I managed in 7 minutes to drain, clean, and replace the oil in the deep fryer while all of my cooks were continuing with service, and there was never a moment like you wouldn't have noticed. Why? Because to make sure that we delivered, you just do it.
That's it. We get it done, right? It's like it doesn't matter how we get there. It's what do we need to get that. And there's so many stories, right? I mean, I have stories. I have a friend who was in New York on a big deal, and we've been drinking a lot of Beaujolais and a lot of Morgon from Marcel Lapierre. And so he's in New York, doesn't know the wine list. He knows that wine. So, and I guess somebody decides to order Magnum or a 3-liter bottle or something. So they come back and they're with, he's in entertainment. So they're with a producer, a famous Broadway producer. And they're trying to schmooze her, I guess, into a project. And so he says that, and he sees there's a commotion in the back, and he sees one guy run out the door with his coat and basically came back, ran to another restaurant that had it across the street. And I forget the name of the square, but you know that square where it's on the corner of Central Park where the CNN is. Anyways, there's a big, I forget the name of the square now, but anyway, so he ran and he got the bottle from somewhere else, and he saw the guy coming back through the back door kind of sweating. And then he came out, and, hey, here's your bottle within like 10 minutes. But it's like, we do whatever the hell we need to do, right?
Yeah. And that's the thing that kept me in the industry for so long, is the people, right? And we're the brotherhoods and the fraternity, the sisterhoods, like the people that you meet are special, right? There's something about the business, you know, it brings out some really fascinating, really, really fantastic people.
Yeah, for sure.
So that's how I got into it. And here we are, you know, 25 years later.
Yeah. So you go back to cook there, but I know you moved around quite a bit. So you eventually
I decided in 2003 that I needed to do something different. I moved back to Vancouver after I graduated from McGill and got back into cooking because it's what I knew. My degree wasn't really going to get me any jobs as far as I could tell. And 2003, 4, you know, things were okay. Just, you know, what do you do with a very, very, very broad liberal arts degree and few concrete skills other than, you know, what you've been doing, you know, for 5 or 6 years. So I went and I got fired from my first job because of differences of opinion on how you close a kitchen. And
that never happens. There's never any.
Never disagreement. And so I was a little bit bummed about that, but like the next day, pretty much, I got a job in a Caribbean restaurant called The Reef in Vancouver on Main Street, and it was amazing. I started off as the baker there. up at 5 into the kitchen at 5 in the morning, and baking the roti, like the flatbreads. I'd make 500 a week, and I loved it. It was great. I was learning something new. I was meeting all kinds of new people with different skills, getting a real taste for the business in a different context, right? Because I'd been on Vancouver Island in a small family-run operation, right? And they sort of bend over backwards for you.
Is that it?
The reef, yeah, that's it.
That's it.
Yeah, that's the joint. Oh, they've opened. Oh, yeah, the little shack of the pass. I love that place.
Yeah.
Funny story about that place is that the chef's name was Josh, and I still think that he just hired me because my name is Josh. And it didn't take long, like a month or so before space opened up, and they realized that I was more than just a guy who could bake roti. I started doing everything, jumping in on, like, staying later, jumping in on making this, doing that, and sooner rather than later, I was doing the prep work for the day, and then within a few days, I was the sous chef. Within a few months, I was the sous chef. And that idea of like being, getting fired or getting rejected, it's not really rejection, it's redirection. So I got redirected into this amazing opportunity. My first sous chef job, a lot of skills and responsibilities. I learned how to really operate a kitchen, deal with suppliers, and really get into the meat and potatoes of the business, and learned a lot. And one day, the chef just didn't come back, and ta-da, you're chef. So within less than a year, I can't even remember how quickly it happened, but it was less than 2 years into this job, and I was the chef. And that became that kind of process, that kind of sort of thinking where I'd come in as one thing and then work my way to the top is sort of how things had progressed for me before. I was a dishwasher at Blueberries, and then when I decided I wanted to be a cook, I went and applied and got the job, and they trained me, and then they're like, wow, we want to keep this guy, and they kept me, and I kept going back there summer after summer. And then when I moved on, like building up those, like coming in as one thing and then moving through was my way of showing businesses or my employers or my teams that I could do whatever you asked me.
But I mean, that's such a standard story in the restaurant business, right? I mean, I'm sure that, I'm not going to quote a number, but a very high percentage of chefs were good employees that were like, had the opportunity, they got implicated, they became a sous chef, and then one day the chef didn't show up, or they got rid of the chef, and they were like, this guy's been doing good, you're getting promoted. I mean, it's funny, you say you started doing dishes at Blueberry. I started doing dishes, and then I started grating cheese and potatoes, and then I got upgraded to pizza. And one day I will tell you, actually, you know what? Let me tell you this story. So I work at Lorenzo's restaurant in a little place called Shiny Wood, called Boisbriand, on the north shore of Montreal. I've been there for about, I don't know, maybe 2-3 weeks, peeling potatoes. I'm grating cheese for the pizzas. First morning I go in, boss forgets to tell me that the door of the dishwasher is broken, so I'm piling these heavy breakfast plates, and the door falls, and I break a bunch of plates, and I'm 14 years old, and I want to cry. He tells me, you're going to wash them by hand, and he just fills the thing with hot burning water. I stick my finger in, and I can still feel the burn in the back of my neck, right, of that. So I've been there a couple of weeks, and one day Nick's like, I'm going for a smoke. He says, clean the fryer. I'm like, how do I do that? He's like, you empty it. He just kind of gives me the basic steps. 14 years old, never worked in a restaurant, never, So he says, grab a pail. So I grab a pail, right? Just after lunch. Does not tell me to grab the metal pail in the corner. So I grab the pail, start pouring the oil. I'm terrified of burning myself. Within about 10 seconds, there's a hole. I'm literally dancing in hot burning oil. And then I take a step back and go back to Nick, and I'm like, what the hell am I doing? So you imagine that it took me about 2 hours to wipe that grease off the floor, change the mop head, clean it. So like you said, doing a fryer is it could be a 10-minute thing. You did it in 7 during a rush. But in my case, it lasted 2 hours. And that's when Nick told me, Chris, And you and I talked about that last week. You said, you know, Chris, the first 15 years are the hardest in this business. And within that first month, I was like, I'm never going to make it in this business. This is a summer job. I am getting the hell out of this, and I'm going to go do something else. And look at me, almost 30 years later, I'm still here. But that was my first time cleaning a fryer. But
they don't make it easy sometimes, eh?
Like I was missing a few steps, you know. I guess I should have thought about that. Yeah,
pertinent details. Yeah. It's funny, like those stories. We have all got them, and blueberries is pretty special to me because it's where I got my start. But there's also another thing that makes it special is that I was a 14-year-old kid starting his first job outside of working for his dad on his fish boat, you know, scrubbing inside of, you know, we're not going to go. And one day I get asked to go tidy up the dry storage room. And that's fine, you know, just it's standard stuff, sweeping, reorganizing, cleaning up things, downsizing, stuff that I've done before. We got a delivery in from, I think, before GFS was GFS, it was a bunch of different things.
Yeah.
I think so. We get a pre-GFS order, and there's a big bag of Dutch cocoa. Like what are they like? Usually about 20 kilos. You know, 40 pounds, 44 pounds.
Yeah, that's the. So, I can imagine where this is going.
It had a little tiny break in the bag, and these things are like double. The bags are like double. Paper, right? They're like, you do not want this stuff exploding. They have bakeries and stuff. They have large white Rubbermaid bins that all this stuff goes into. And so I had to get it into the bin. And so I asked the owner's son happened to be there. And actually I got that job because he didn't want to do it. The dishwashing job. And so he's standing in the corner watching me do all this stuff, like just, you know, laughing, I guess, because he's that kind of guy. And I asked him for his help, and he's like, no. So I'm like, okay, I delicately try to get it up, and I get it onto the edge of the thing, and I kind of like lose my grip on the thing, and the corner of the bag slips, the tear widens, and then both sides of this thing fall into the container. Imagine a mushroom cloud of Dutch cocoa straight up into the air, and I'm over top of it like this. You know? I had it in my ears, I had it in my hair, I had it up my nose. I tasted of it. And from that moment on, all of the waitresses who were like grade 11s and 12s and like just graduated from my high school. So I knew all of these people very well. They knew my face. They knew that I would see them every day. I became Cocoa Boy. And to this day, every time I talk to them, it's not, hey, Josh, how you doing? It's, hey, Cocoa Boy.
Well, I can tell you that we kind of all have nicknames on the Piecemeal Slack, right?
Yeah.
Maybe we'll have to change yours to Cocoa Boy. I'm just saying, throwing it out there. But you're telling me the story, and in my brain, I'm seeing all of my worst moments pop. First time I plugged the keg and took a shower. First time I unclogged the fountain of Coke, and basically something that looked like a piece of Coke poop fell with the juice that was stuck in the drain behind and hit me all in the face as I had a bucket, but not at the right angle. And I remember when I was about 20, those years, so you were talking to 2003, 4, I was managing McDonald's restaurants, and there's these big, for those who've never seen it, but there's these like box of syrups for Coke. It gets mixed with water, but they come in as it's like a 20-liter. It's a pretty heavy case, and they're hard to pierce because the cover, so that this bag does not collapse, because otherwise it becomes a bag as big as my desk. But you need to pierce that little, but they make it pretty thick. So the thing is, people tend to take a pen to pierce it and open it. So I've seen a few times. I remember doing a schedule in the office, and an employee called me. She's like, Chris, I need help. And she literally's got like root beer, like a spray of root beer falling all over her, which is, you can imagine this is concentrated. I don't know how many times, but like 4 or 5 times, I think. So it's super sticky and super
syrupy and everywhere.
Like, no tape to put on the bag, like similar to your cocoa. Like once it's done, you're kind of screwed, and there's not much to do with it. But yeah, and then like all of these episodes are popping in my brain of where the beer one. I always remember coming out of that. I'd never plugged a keg before, and I'm in an environment where I should know how to do that. So I plug it in and I do it sideways, and I literally come out of the beer fridge, like dripping with beer. And yeah,
this is the kind of stuff that, like, it becomes the lore that and the connection that we all share, right? As industry people, when we're later in life or later in career, it's like when you meet somebody who works in the business and you've never met them before, but you have this instantaneous bond because you've all done the same stuff.
Yeah.
All had root beer syrup sprayed at you, or the cocoa powder in the face. Like, there's something we can all share a story about.
As you said, you had it on your face. And not just to get into a bunch of anecdotes, but the pilot went out on a pizza oven, so it filled with gas, and I lit the pilot, so the door exploded, and then I literally almost fell on my face, and I saw the gas go like afterburner. And literally I was probably 14, 15, all the air was white. I felt like not that I had a beard back then, but anyways, it was all like the top of my hair was burnt. And I was like, nearly died that day.
That's a terrible story.
That's a horrible story. I could literally, like, that door, I don't know, the old pizza oven. Heavy metal door. It literally fell in my face, like grazed my nose. Like, I don't know how I didn't break my face that day, but.
Or, lots of other things, man. Life, and that's the thing you learn in the restaurant business. Two things. One, life is a game of inches, right? Like, you are going to be so close to ending yourself so many times. Yeah. And the other thing you learn is, like, wow, we are woefully undertrained.
I thought you were going to say we're very resilient. But we're
undertrained. Starting to, what you should all be taking away from this, people, is that we don't have enough time to train each other properly.
Hey, you're talking, cuts and stuff like that. Like, you're putting 14-year-old kids that have never done anything with really sharp objects, because it's the only at home you have you get to a restaurant, super sharp knives, hot water, burning oil. Yeah, it is a pretty crazy
environment for disaster. Which I guess is sort of part of the reason that we are so pumped about what we're doing with Piecemeal, right? Like,
for sure.
Not to jump the queue here and get ahead of ourselves, but I mean,
no, totally.
The idea that we don't have time, we have to strategically choose at many points in our career, either as an employee or as a manager or an owner. You strategically choose what you do with your time, and a lot of times, like the guy who's like, how do you empty the deep fryer? It's like, you do these 3 things, but there's critical information in this stuff, because that guy'd probably been working for 4 hours without stop and just needed to collect himself for 5 minutes before he jumped back in. Like, we have to cut so many corners because we don't have the time to or we feel we don't have the time a lot of cases, right? And that may be a sort of a manufactured feeling, but I don't really think it is. Whether for a lot of reasons.
Well, a lot of times we don't have the tools
to
be more efficient, right? Or don't search them, and just to move that conversation into that. When I do table 21s, I rarely talk about Piecemeal, other than when the guests mention it, because some people that come on are Piecemeal users, some aren't. In this case, we're both on the team. Just want to give a little background, because I know a lot of people share this and it might be seen by people who don't know.
Yeah.
So, long story short, we're industry people that decided to use tech to do better things, not the other way around. A lot of times it's tech people that are like, oh, there's an opportunity. There's a lot of restaurants that could go there. Everybody on our team has a background in restaurants, has operated, worked, owned, whatever restaurants. So we come at it from we've seen all these mistakes. We've had all these bad tools. We created all these Excel sheets, and we said, how can we do things better? Yeah. So I just wanted to transpose that. And for those of you who may watch this and not necessarily know what Piecemeal is, because you may have seen this on Facebook, and Piecemeal is basically an online platform to help you manage your restaurant better. Inventory, costing, purchasing, scheduling, all in the same tool. So I just want to throw it out there, because since I never mentioned it on Table 21, people might be like, okay, you're going into this conversation. So that's the idea. This is what we do now. Platform's been out for a year. We're serving hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of restaurants already. And I'm curious to know, kind of in that article that you're about to put out and that you wrote, because that's one of the reasons, as I said at the beginning, I wanted to talk to you, is you wrote a really nice article. Is kind of, how do you perceive, what we do, and what attracted you to it, and how you feel about it now, and curious to hear, your point of view on this.
Right. So the way that I operate so I'm no longer a cook. I retired. Folks out there in internet land, I retired because it's a really, 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 really hard job. Being a cook, being in the restaurant business takes so much effort, so much energy. And in a lot of cases, people, they might be fulfilling that one part of their life objectives, their vocation, as it were. But I was feeling that I was having to spend too much time at the business and not with this other thing that I was building, which was my family, right? Which is another amazing adventure that I didn't want to miss out on. And I was finding that where I was and where the industry was, and that wasn't going to be the case for me. I couldn't reconcile the two. And a lot of that had to do with the fact of all the sacrifices that we have to make in the business. A lot of it comes down to the sacrifices you make personally, but there's also the sacrifices as a business that you make in terms of the choices that you have to make for the tools that you use, the people that you hire, the schedule that you construct. All of this is a compromise. Every single thing that we do in restaurants is an enormous compromise on what we want to be the ideal. And I found that at the time I couldn't reconcile what I wanted as the ideal thing with how things were and where I saw them as going. And I chose to exit the industry at the time and go back to something that I felt really passionate about, which was mathematics. And that seems like a totally random thing, but for me, it wasn't. It was something that had always been in my life. But the reason I left the business was because of these challenges that I couldn't reconcile. We could never seem to afford the right things. Whether we couldn't afford the time, we couldn't afford the people, and I didn't know how to reconcile that. So, plan B. Fast forward to 5 years after I finished my master's degree, and my wife, the incomparable Lauren Jane Heller, who, if you don't know, you should check her out on LinkedIn. She was coaching Christopher at Next AI on his pitch prep for the work that they were doing, and she came home buzzing. She just had this, look in her eye when she started talking to me about it, and said that you need to talk to these guys. They're doing something that I think you would really connect with. It's and she explained sort of the rough details about it, and I reached out because while I was in the business, my last big gig was the executive chef at a little place that is, close to a lot of people in Montreal's heart, Moishes Steakhouse. From 2010 to the end of 2011, almost exactly 2 years, I was at the helm of, I guess, probably one of the most famous restaurants in the city and very well known across Canada, and in lots of places around the world, in fact. And I found myself having to reconcile a need to go towards more technological solutions, but with limited resources. At the time, Lenny and Larry had understood this. Lenny and Larry Leiter, I guess the sons of Moishes Leiter, the namesake of the restaurant.
Yeah.
They knew that they had to make this shift from what they were doing before, which everybody does in the business, which is pen and paper in a lot of cases, especially if you're old school, and more modern solutions were an Excel spreadsheet that somebody got you from, or somebody sent you, or you found on the internet, or you made yourself. And Lenny and Larry actually invested in a bit of software that was a great step forward. But as you said,
software.
As you said, it was a technologist solution, a computer scientist solution to a restaurant problem. And while they may have had some connection, it was let's just say it didn't really stick with me. And that's
the problem.
So many things that I wanted it to be able to do, so many things that I knew I could get things to do. So I was coming up with solutions. I was making mathematical models about our sales projections so that I could advance our needs in the restaurant and do better work without having to put so much time in, because those pen and paper solutions, all that typing, it was just, why I'm spending so much time on that when there's got to be a better way.
Yeah. And let's just be clear too, like you're on the, like I'm your glass half full on this, but you said pen and paper or Excel, but let's not fool ourselves. A lot of restaurants have nothing.
We don't even do it. Yeah.
What is the recipe for success in a ton of restaurants? It's called hope and pray. Yeah. And hope and pray is not a tactic to make sure that you'll be successful.
As long as we're selling things, it doesn't matter.
Yep.
But that's not a recipe for longevity. It's not a recipe for a legacy. It's not a recipe for being satisfied with the work that you do. It's a slog and it's hard. Yeah. And that's really, in a nutshell, why the thing that I saw you guys doing really hooked me. I saw a connection to what I believed was the next step in these kinds of solutions that are already out there. There's dozens of them that they do it. It's just they're expensive and they're wholly inadequate. And for a person like me, who's already kind of like a cobbler, a person who will dig into things and try to take them apart and put them back together to find out how they work and then make them look better or break them, and just like totally unsatisfying. But what I saw in Piecemeal was a recognition that it's going to take people inside the business with a very, 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 very deep understanding of its problems to come up with the solutions, but they also need to be able to understand the technology. And I guess, in Christopher and in Oz, there's two guys here who, both Oz being from a restaurateur family, Christopher being a longtime consultant and industry veteran himself, like working in the business, doing the dirty work.
Yeah.
We all had we all seem to have this synergy of skills that just sort of click together, like Voltron coming together. And I'm a person who, as I said, pulls apart things, gets into the details and finds out how it works. And that complemented the things that you guys were doing. And I saw this really, really, really great fit, and sort of projected a little bit of my own hopes and dreams onto the project, and quickly decided that this is what I wanted to be doing at the time. And fast forward a year and a bit later, after a lot of different things that have come and gone through the work that we've been doing, like I am so excited about what we're doing and where we have the potential to go with this, because our biggest enemy in the business, it's got lots of proxies, lots of little things that you could stand in for, right? We have the and this is actually getting into sort of the meat and potatoes of that article I was writing. It's like, why do we need this? Why is a tool like Piecemeal, which takes an old problem of how to run my business so that I can not be beholden to the day-to-day. How can I run my business and enjoy being in my business? And the number one enemy that we all face in all businesses, but particularly in the restaurant business, because it's always on top of you, is time. Time is a human construct, but it's also there on the wall, and that clock ticking away. 5 minutes to service. Service has begun. Where's that fish? So it's
where's the order? Why isn't the order here?
And I used to have dreams when I first started cooking, Christopher. In my sleep, I would be dreaming about hearing that printer go and the keys on the cash register, the beep of them, and just like anxiety and nightmare about that feeling of being in service and all of the pressure that goes into it. And if that weren't enough, right? The being in service, getting things done, getting tickets to tables so that people are happy and their food is hot, like that, if that weren't enough, there's all of the other things that try to steal your time throughout the day. You know, damage control is a constant thing, right? And that takes you away from the things that need you to push forward. And then there's just the management, the day-to-day management of things, like keeping on top of your business. How do we, like, where are we with our inventory? What do we need to buy? You know, how long have we had this case of milk? Like, everything, time rots food, time steals our money, time is constantly pressuring us to perform at a higher frequency. And that is not going to get any better in the business. With more and more things that are coming in to kind of like tap your, cut into your margin, and like the delivery service fees, and now with COVID not having as much clientele, having to purchase new products. How do you find the time to make sure that you're paying your bills, to make sure that your staff has the staff that you can keep has hours, that you can communicate needs and things effectively and quickly. Like this is so hard at the best of times, and now we're asked to do it with fractions of that time that was available before, because we're working with fractions of people and fractions of money. Yeah. And piecemeal, to me, is the answer, because from the point of view of a person in the business who understands the ability that technology, or the role that technology has played as sort of a hindrance and an annoyance in a lot of ways, this is not at all. This is kind of the best case scenario of how do I do things easily and almost automatically without worrying. And as soon as we talked about it and I saw what we already were doing when I went like a year ago, when we really got working together, with the invoice processing, with the linking to inventory, with the the procedures that you have changed, that we have remodeled, like rethought how to do inventory. If you've ever done inventory in the restaurant business, people watching, it's a slog. It's a horrible, boring, and time-consuming process. And just there's so many places that you can get in there and find the efficiencies. But if that's not your game, right? If you're not a consultant, or if you're not a platformer, an operator, you don't know how to do that. Yeah. And you don't have the time to do that. So enter piecemeal.
Just to jump in quickly, that's the vision behind all of it. Was it's great. There are software, and you said it, like when you were at Moishes, they brought in a piece of software that was part of the answer, but because it's not, it becomes another obstacle, like another something, another spoke in the wheel. It's gonna, like a stick in the wheel to slow you down, and it got good intentions, but it doesn't give you the result that you want in the end. So you wind up having to work more, and not that there's not some work, obviously, in any platform like Piecemeal to get going. But somebody told me one day, when you mentioned Lauren before, your wife, and when she came to coach some pitches we were working on with Next AI. Well, in one of those conversations, there was an investor in the room, and he invested in a competitor of ours that does obviously a lot less than what we do. And he said, Chris, this sounds too good to be true. It's like you're trying to just do, and I actually had somebody that is a user now, but that back then when we were really early, I was talking to people that I knew in the industry, said, this sounds too good to be true. It sounds like, and then his employee, his manager said, sounds like you're trying to create the perfect tool for restaurants. I said, hey, guess what? You just figured it out. That's what we're trying to do, right? But basically, it's not tech for the purpose of tech. it's tech to save us time. And this is what you mentioned, whether it's the ability to read the invoices in real time and connect them, or to do your inventory on your phone and not to have to copy things twice. And the goal is to say, and I, built it with Oz with that in mind, is to say, and now with you and Felix on the team and all that, and everything that we're making it better and better, is to say, how can we go from, and we're even going to get better at that in the next few months because we've all made a plan together, but how do we take operators, users, managers from zero to results in the shortest amount of time? Mm-hmm. And a lot of it is built that way usually.
Yeah, that's that is sort of the burning issue for us. Is we know that we have to find. We know where the inefficiencies are. We know where the problems lie.
And one of the things that you're working on, which are the integrations, is I'm realizing more and more. So when I say integrations, is that, and Josh, if you want to tell us about it, but Josh is working integrations with some of our partners, our POS partners, right? So we've done an integration with Kumi POS. We've done an integration with Cluster POS. And now, which are, all local POS to Montreal where we're based. And now Josh is working on the Lightspeed and the Velas and the Maitre D, which are, other big partners there. But what I'm realizing too is just from the reporting and the stuff that we're building in a platform, just connecting your POS to Piecemeal will already give you a ton of insight.
Yeah.
And then you can take that step further. So even in steps, without having to say, let's work with this, big platform, just connecting a POS and doing a few steps will give you insight into your performance, and then you can, get to the next level. So anyways, I don't want to drag on, but I think you're doing some great work that's going to help us get some of that of those results and those quick results.
Yeah. So the thing that I am working on, if we're going to, just to make this clear, is that yes, Piecemeal's goal is to cut time, right? We all want time back. Time, and I see this as being the opportunity once we get that time back in the business to now, rethink how we spend our time in the business. We can work on it. Oh, hey, you wanted to have some time off? That's an unheard of thing as an owner or manager. It's like you can use Piecemeal and not be in the restaurant. And part of that is that we, with these integrations, just being able to talk to your POS to tell you how much you sold, and then talk and have that connected immediately to your sales or to your inventory. You're getting answers immediately that would take weeks before. Yeah. In most cases, which is what we want to deal with. We want the most cases that are struggling, right? It's not the few that get it. They get it, and if they're operating fine and we're not the thing, great. But what for me made such a huge impact, a huge difference, was that other bit of software that I was using at Moishes. Just when I came on, so it had other people who had been working on it. I was like the third or fourth person to come in and try to do this project with them. They did not. Other people did not succeed where I did, because it took more than a month just to populate the conversions for different products in the system. I had to go through all of the stuff that we bought to calibrate our the conversions. Like how much does a cup of flour weigh? What's it, what's that, or honey? How much does it weigh? What's its volume? Now we have lots of things where you can, connect to a service on the internet and ask that question and it'll tell you. But, 10 years ago, you did this all by hand. And the thing you have to remember is that all that stuff by hand, that month of time, that was a month of time that I could have been doing recipe development. I could have been working with my team to integrate the new things that we were doing and working on how we were going to change the front of the restaurant to make service better and to make the flow and the teamwork better. All that stuff could have been handled, but I had to spend this month, doing stuff that the rest of the team didn't see. It's invisible work, right? And that has leadership implications. They know that they see that I'm there, but they don't, I'm not there when they're all doing the thing, because I'm there 10 hours in the morning and leave when they do, so I can go spend time with my family, right? So like this, this kind of thing, it's not just the how the money works and how or the expense of it, but this also has, like I said, leadership implications. People within the culture of the restaurant business, perceptions are really important. So being able to take that time that was otherwise going to be flushed down the toilet essentially with this drudgery work, Piecemeal and the integrations make that sort of a thing of the past. You don't have to worry about that. And maybe I'm talking big and people don't believe what I'm saying, but I mean, just with Kumi and Cluster, the integration, you collect your daily sales, you can collect your menus, and it automatically, the way we've designed it, it populates your menu list, tells you what the items are, and you just have to go in and connect them to your recipes.
Yeah. And just to be clear, what that looks like is basically in your Piecemeal account, there will be 0 menu items created that you can go and create one by one, or you connect it to your POS. It'll download what you sold and create all of these 100, 200, 300. We have some users that have 800. I don't know how they live, but that create all of these menu items, and then you can link them and do your costing with them. But it takes away that work of populating that, and that's an automation that basically gets done first time you connect. In 5 seconds, it's done. This is work that took months. The same way you talk about conversions, just as another great example is that sometimes when you do a recipe, you want to do it by weight or volume. Well, in Piecemeal, we allow you to automate. Basically, that conversion is done automatically, right? You can give it a conversion and then use it in any weight or volume or unit that you want, which is basically seems very simple. But before it was like a month of work if you wanted to do that. So that's why 99% of restaurants would not have even done that work, right? So this is where we say, like, there's a better way of doing things, and this is what we are aiming and pretty much achieving at doing, is to simplify all these steps, right?
Yeah, and for me, I don't take on jobs or tasks lightly. Like everything, it's important work, because the business needs attention, right? You always have to have an eye on where your money is going. Otherwise, it's going to be a short-lived adventure, and a very stressful one. The joke is, how do you make a small fortune in the restaurant business? You start with a big one. That doesn't have to be true, right? That is folk wisdom. The first 15 years of hard work, we really want to keep those stories. We really do, because it shouldn't be so hard. Like, I'm don't get me wrong, I'm glad that I left the business, because I'm doing things that are much more passionate about and much more exciting to me, and I still cook. My family wouldn't let me get away from it. And I love having my friends. I love having my friends over in my backyard having barbecue. Now I have an opportunity to give back to my community in ways that I couldn't in the business. In the restaurant, in a restaurant, I tried consulting. It's really hard,
Years.
It's really hard. People love asking for your advice. They rarely like it, and they even less frequently like paying for it. So that's kind of, you being a consultant for so long and sort of knowing how to navigate those waters, leading you to Piecemeal to do this thing. All of that experience you have put into this. So all of these things that they don't want to pay for, they don't have time to make the money to pay for. That's in them. That is built into it. And it's the goal is all of our experience, all of your experience, Felix's experience, and I'm sure as we grow and more people come along, all of that time and energy that we spent understanding each other's problems is built into this.
Yeah.
And
that's probably something I wish you guys could hear more often, but Felix gets to hear it because he works with our users every day. I talk to a lot of our users every day, but when we get like comments like we've had in the last 4 or 5 months, even during this crazy time and crisis that we're in, like we would, like, somebody came up and there was they had an issue that we helped them fix, and and the chef was saying, my employee gonna complain, and I said, would you like to go back to what we were using before? He's like, no, never. Like, this is 100 times better than anything we've ever used. I was just complaining because, you know, that's what we do and humans complain, but no, definitely don't want to go back to doing all of this stuff manually. And then another user's telling me, well, one thing, it literally said, you guys are geniuses. And I said, no, we're not. We're just maybe just really close to our industry, and it feels like somebody else should have done that before, but we're not. At least I'm not. Oz might be, but I'm not. But and maybe you are, and maybe Felix is, but
I just work really, 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 really hard.
You what, sorry?
I work really, really, really hard.
Yeah. But anyway, she said we could tell that this was built by restaurant people. And it made me so proud because we are building the tool that we wanted to have when we operated, and that we knew, you know, that Excel sheet that you built, or that Excel sheet that I built to manage labor costs, and the other one to manage critical inventory or to count, you know, like there's a better way for this. And the first time Oz showed me the initial product for Piecemeal almost 2.5 years ago, I blew my mind because I was like, okay, there's other people that get it. Yeah. And that's the great thing about our tribe at Piecemeal, is that we all see that we can use tech to simplify our life and our friends' life and operators' life. And that's the most exciting thing, is the tech is tech. Tech is great, but it's like I always say, a hammer can kill someone, can build a house, or it can gather dust on a shelf, right? Mm-hmm. But if you use it for the right thing, you can build houses for a bunch of families with a hammer. With the same hammer, right? It's that strong that it'll do that. And like you said, we're doing really hard work, but we're already impacting hundreds of people, and soon it'll be thousands of people, right? Which is really, really motivating. And really, when you hit a wall, or where we scratch our heads about something, or we want to fix something, makes it that much more meaningful, because we're not just even doing it for us. The Excel sheet I'm doing for one client as a consultant, it's great that it helps her. But now that system that we're building is going to impact thousands of people, and that's like so exciting.
Yeah, I can't wait to be able to see even more of what our customers are experiencing. Because, you know, I'm sitting behind my monitor day in and day out, programming the integration so that we can talk to these things and get that information out into your Piecemeal account, so that you can log in the next day and see what was sold and how your on-hand inventory has been impacted. And the stress, like I would come home from Moishes after placing orders, and like I wouldn't sleep because I'd be worried that I didn't get something in. I'd be worried that, you know, the next day, if I, you know, took a day off, which was really hard, that I wasn't going to get 1,000 phone calls about a problem that could be handled on site if we had the right tools, we had the right time management techniques and stuff. And with a tool like Piecemeal, and I'm tooting my own horn here. I'm very biased, but I actually think that, like other unlike the other solutions which are created by computer science people, you don't have to be hugely technologically capable to operate this. If you can attach a file to an email, you can. If you can find a file on your computer, you can. That's it. There's some upfront work that we all have to do. It's inevitable because it's a big thing to get your restaurant into the system. But I promise you that it is nowhere near as complicated as some of the other stuff that I've done. And that alone makes me sleep so sweetly. I don't worry. I know that what we're doing is going to is helpful. It is saving people time and energy and money. And if I can take away the anxiety that I felt every day for most of my career as a leader in business, if I can take that away from other people, if I can help give them a better night's sleep, if I can help them have a day off without all those phone calls, without those text messages saying the freezer is broken, or like, I would probably die happy.
Yep. So there is something very satisfying in knowing that we're fixing a problem that we've lived our whole life and said, why isn't there a better way to do this? And that eventually we got to work on this and basically fix some of that, right? We're not going to fix all the problems, but we can fix a big chunk of that management part. I knew this time would fly, and we've been at this for over an hour already. I would invite everybody. I will tie to this, and we'll share on our social media and all that the article that you're putting out, just because I think it's a pretty good deep dive into some of the stuff we got to graze on today. But I would invite people that like this conversation to go and check that out. I do want to give a shout out to the incredible Lauren Jane Heller, your wife, yes. Who that's how without her we wouldn't have met. She coached us at Next AI. I got to work with her recently. If you're trying to basically build a big brand, Lauren Jane Heller is the woman to help you tell that story. So visit her website. She's coaching people like me that are trying to tell a better story, and she's pretty incredible at what she does. Just a great person inside and out. And if you're curious, check it out, because I'm really, really glad to have met her. Not only because it brought me to you, but because she's an amazing woman. And you're a very lucky man, but I'm sure you know that already. And I think it would be, I usually, like I said, Table 21 is not about piecemeal, but today it was because we talked. But I'll tell people that might be curious about all the stuff you've been saying that you can go and get your account at www.piecemeal.io. Check out our work. We just love to show it off, and we have a great team behind it. So
Christopher says down there at the bottom, it's a free account. We could also point out that if you don't know, the tools are free forever.
Yep.
There's no cost associated with this for a restaurant to update. And if you're worried about the bottom line, as we all know you are, another subscription, another fee, another cut of the sales just is not something that you're interested in. And that's another thing that attracted me to this is the tools are excellent. They're robust, they're strong, and they're growing every day. Oz isn't like, I'm blown away by that man's capacity to code and come up with the solutions quickly. It's uncanny. But the product itself if you feel like you got to spend money to do the work, Piecemeal can let you have it, and you don't have to spend money.
Yeah. I'll you know what? I'll put our product next to anything on the market today, except that the other you'll pay hundreds of dollars, and we get to offer ours for free. So I think it's a win-win, and we wanted it to be a win-win-win for everybody. And yeah, we're pretty excited. Before we wrap this up, anything else you want to?
I also want to plug the marketplace, because we didn't talk about that. And if anybody is in the business who's watching, a lot of your suppliers, if you're maybe a GFS customer or one of the you have a portal that you can go to and you can order your stuff and it comes the next day and you pay it and it's fine. Most small businesses operations, they can't afford that. And if your supplier does have a web portal where you can go in and order, it's probably clunky. You may have 2 or 3 different email passwords to remember to log in. But Oz has created a marketplace, a business-to-business marketplace, where you can go in and look right now and see what people are selling. There's wine, there's uniform stuff, there's equipment, there's flatware, there's food, drink, you name it, and you can pay for it right there. Where else can you go to do what you need, even if it's just like some paper products and necessities that you would otherwise have to truck around to compare prices and find things? You can do this here. And anything else, like, I would just use Piecemeal for this, because I hated 7 suppliers for the checking prices, and I'm 2 o'clock in the morning, it's 3 o'clock in the morning, it's Saturday, we've served 300 people and I am exhausted. And I've got to put in a veg order, a fish order, a meat order, check the bread and check the linens and laundry and all the stuff to make sure that we got enough shit. And sorry. Is this a PG podcast?
Restaurant thing, so we can do whatever we want.
I would use it just for this. And we have some growing to do there for sure, but like, I can't tell you how excited I am about it.
Like, 50 partners on there, almost 400 products, and the goal obviously is to do 10 times, 100 times that as we grow it. But it's the reaction to the marketplace has been very positive, and people are excited that they can, like you said, it's that experience you get at home that you can shop from a bunch of people on Amazon and do one checkout. Well, it's the same thing for restaurants. Nobody does that. Like, it's completely unique to us. So exciting.
Just for restaurants, like, to bring them to all of these suppliers alone is a dream.
Yeah.
From the other side, as a supplier, I would see this and be like, oh, I have access to how many restaurants? What can I sell there? Anything? Oh, interesting. Right? Like I said, I'm biased. I am maybe a little bit too excited about it, but I don't think I'm overstating anything here. And I'm really, really, really glad to be part of this, Christopher. I'm glad that we met. I'm, was it serendipity, I guess, was on our side that day. So,
well, I feel the same way. Glad that we got to meet. Glad that we were building this together. Glad that we get to impact people already, and that we'll get to impact a lot more as we move forward. Thank you for being you. Thank you for your work. Thank you for your belief in what we do and your understanding of it. It's great. I knew this time would fly. We might have to redo this again down the line.
Yeah.
But thanks for coming up. And can't wait to see the article, and can't wait to share it for people.
I'm hoping to get it out today, but we'll let everybody know as soon as it's live, and they can take a look and let us know how they feel.
Amazing.
Get a little better idea of what we're doing.
And everybody, if some of you are open, have a great service tonight, and or today at lunch. It's still pretty early, and we'll talk to you soon. Cheers, everyone.
Peace.